Have you ever had the experience of being so absorbed in whatever it is that you were doing that you completely lost track of time? When you were shocked to see just how many hours had passed, or to realize that you'd forgotten to eat lunch or dinner because you were just so in the zone? What were you doing at the time? It probably felt pretty good, right? Hello, and welcome to Positive Lawyering, a series designed to help you harness science-backed insights from positive psychology to enjoy greater satisfaction and sustainable success in your life and law practice. My name is Jordana Confino, and I am delighted to be accompanying you on this journey. Thanks to a man named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, we now have a word that we can use to describe these experiences of peak absorption, as well as a roadmap that we can use to intentionally experience more of them. It's called flow, which Csikszentmihalyi describes as a state in which a person is so involved in the task at hand that everything else seems to melt away. Csikszentmihalyi first experienced flow as a child during World War II when he was imprisoned with his family in a prisoner of war camp. 10-year-old Csikszentmihalyi realized that he could escape the fear and misery of daily life by playing chess, concentrating on the game for hours at a time and effectively slipping into a totally different world. After the war, Csikszentmihalyi became further intrigued by the concept of flow while he was studying a group of highly creative painters. He noticed that when the painters were working on a piece, they became entirely oblivious to things like hunger, fatigue, and discomfort, and that they seemed to be driven purely by intrinsic motivation, rather than pay, prestige, or worry about what the final product would look like. Intrigued, Csikszentmihalyi went on to conduct interviews with thousands of workers across a variety of industries who cited enjoyment as their primary reason for pursuing their trade. What he discovered was a precise type of peak engagement that existed across all of these different activities, which he ultimately came to call flow. When we're in flow, time passes quickly, our attention is laser focused on the task at hand, and our sense of self-judgment seems to fade away. We also tend to feel strong, alert, unself-conscious, in effortless control, and at the peak of our abilities. And we're not imagining it either. Indeed, flow states have been found to actually promote peak performance, as well as feelings of well-being that extend well beyond the conclusion of a particular flow experience. And neuroscience helps us understand why that's the case. One reason is that the human nervous system is only capable of processing approximately 110 bits of information per second, which is why humans are physically incapable of multitasking despite our persistent efforts to do so. And being in flow uses up all of the processing power of our brains, which means that physical sensations like hunger and outside distractions go unnoticed, enabling us to focus intensely on the task at hand. Another thing that happens when we're in flow is that the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the area of our brain responsible for self-monitoring, goes quiet. And that's fantastic because what it does is free us from that voice of self-doubt or our nagging inner critic, which, as we learned in the last episode, both takes an emotional toll and prevents us from doing our best work. As peak performance expert Steven Kotler wrote in his book, The Rise of Superman, Decoding the Science of Ultimate Human Performance, when the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex goes quiet, our tendency to second guess is cut off at the source. The result is liberation. We act without hesitation, creativity becomes more free-flowing, risk-taking becomes less frightening, and the combination lets us flow at a far faster clip. Pretty cool, right? Now, I'll admit that my first reaction was, well, that's great for some people, but I can't play chess and I don't have an artistic bone in my body, so how is this relevant to me? But I am very pleased to inform you that you do not need to be a chess player, an artist, or an athlete to experience flow. Rather, the research shows that anyone can tap into flow as long as certain conditions are satisfied. In fact, the most widely reported flow activity is reading a good book. And lawyers have described finding flow in a variety of activities, ranging from legal writing and negotiation to oral arguments and client interviews. And you can bet that those who do so on a regular basis enjoy higher levels of both job satisfaction and performance. So how can you find your flow? Well, the first thing you need to do is identify a task that is both intrinsically rewarding and presents the optimal level of challenge. With respect to the first criteria, this means that the task must be something that you actually enjoy doing, rather than something that you pursue purely for praise or payout or out of a sense of perceived obligation. In our next episode on character strengths, we'll discuss a strategy that will help you identify tasks that meet this criteria. As for the second requirement, optimal challenge, the reason this matters is because if the difficulty of a task exceeds your skill set, you'll find yourself feeling frustrated or anxious. But if the task is too easy, you'll get bored. Flow occurs in that narrow space between boredom and anxiety, which is precisely the right spot to keep you interested and engaged. Once you've identified your activity, the next step is to ditch the distractions, both internally and externally. Remember, flow requires absolute concentration on the task at hand, which means that there can be no multitasking or self-scrutiny. And the research shows that it can take roughly 15 minutes to enter flow, so if you're continuously diverting your attention elsewhere, that's never going to happen. Now, I'll admit that this is a teeny bit circular. On the one hand, flow offers incredible capacity for both concentration and self-assurance, but to get there, you need to drop the distractions and self-judgment. And while this is obviously easier said than done, I can assure you that it is both doable and 100% worth it. And I have a hack to help you through it. Specifically, in the upcoming week, I encourage you to set a permission timer, whereby you shut your door, turn off your alerts, and give yourself 20 to 30 uninterrupted minutes to execute your task without judging your efforts in real time. So if you're drafting a document, just write. Don't worry about whether your ideas are good or bad or if they're riddled with typos. Or if you're engaging in a recreational activity, just allow yourself to be fully present without monitoring your performance or progress. Once your timer goes off, then you can go back and self-assess if you'd like. Unless, of course, you're in the zone, in which case, by all means, keep on flowing. You will be amazed by the impact this simple trick can have on both your engagement and performance. I hope you will join me for our next episode. Until then, take care, friend.